Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Best English Podcast. I'm your host, Sophia, and today I am absolutely thrilled to have you join me. If you're new to our channel, I want to tell you, you didn't just stumble upon us. You're here because you want to grow, to learn, to become an even better version of yourself. And guess what? You're definitely not alone on that journey. We share helpful educational videos every single day because we truly believe that a little knowledge shared with care can really change lives. So if you're ready to take that next step, to learn something new, to feel inspired, and to believe in your own potential, then please stay with us, subscribe, and let's walk this path of growth together. One day at a time. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that I know so many of you care about deeply. It's something that's often right at the heart of learning a new language. Speaking English naturally, making your English skills better. You see, this isn't just about learning grammar rules or trying to remember long lists of words. No, it's about taking all those basic pieces and turning them into something smooth, something you feel really good about, and something that's truly, completely yours. It's about talking in a way that feels easy, feels real, and just feels like you, helping you connect better with other people. And honestly, that's what it's all about, isn't it? For all of you working hard to improve your English, I've put this episode together just for you. We're going to explore different parts of natural English, from the small, almost tiny details of everyday talk and the natural rhythm of how native speakers actually chat, to understanding some of those cultural ideas that often just weave their way into our conversations without us even realizing it. Because this is a longer, more complete discussion, we'll take our time. I'll explain each point with interesting real-life stories, really clear examples, lots and lots of simple ways to show you what I mean, and most importantly, I'll give you plenty of chances to practice right here as you listen. My main goal, truly, is to make this not just a helpful lesson, but a really fun and engaging listening time, one that leaves you feeling more ready, more capable, and genuinely excited about your English journey. So, if you're ready to truly unlock that natural way of speaking English, please get comfortable, maybe grab a cup of coffee or your favorite drink, and let's start this amazing journey together. I'm really looking forward to this one. When we first start learning a new language, we usually begin, don't we, with the strong, clear basics, the rules of grammar, those seemingly endless lists of words, and the sometimes tricky verb forms. And let's be very clear, these are absolutely important building blocks. They're the main frame for becoming good at any language. But real natural speaking, that easy flow we all admire in native speakers, goes much further than just knowing these rules. It's about understanding how those rules are gently bent, mixed together nicely, and used without even thinking in the quick-moving world of conversation. It's almost like learning to dance. You learn the steps, but then you need to feel the music, to move with it effortlessly, right? Think about it for a moment in your own language. Do you always, with every single sentence, strictly follow every grammar rule you ever learned in school? Probably not, right? There's a certain unsaid flexibility, a natural way of speaking, a natural beat, and a clear, spontaneous feeling that comes with truly natural talk. Our big goal today, my friends, is to bring that same naturalness into your English. We want to move from just knowing English to truly feeling and using English in a way that feels right and simple. Let me tell you a story about a great student I once taught. Let's call him Leo. Leo was, by all accounts, very smart in his studies. He knew every grammar rule you could imagine, he knew every irregular verb by heart, and he had a really big vocabulary, which helped him understand hard English texts perfectly. He could break down a sentence and explain its grammar perfectly. Yet, when it came to the actual act of speaking, Leo often found it a bit hard. He would frequently stop, sometimes for what felt like long moments, as he carefully, in his head, changed each word, each phrase, from his own language into English before saying it. The result, even if it was grammatically correct, often sounded a bit like a robot, a bit stiff. For instance, instead of just saying, "I'm going to the shop," he might internally be thinking, "How do I say I? Okay, now, am going? Is that go or going? Ah, going. And to the shop? Yes, to the shop." This mental step-by-step process made his spoken English sound slow and a bit choppy, like he was building each sentence word by word. You could almost hear his brain working, piece by piece. I remember one time he was trying to tell me about his weekend, and he said, "Yesterday, I did go to the park." While it was understandable, the pauses and the careful construction made it clear he was translating. He was undeniably book smart in English, but the challenge was changing that deep book knowledge into the street smart, easy way of everyday talking. This, dear listeners, is a very common experience, isn't it? Many of us, I believe, can really understand Leo's journey. The small but important gap between knowing the rules of a language and being able to use them naturally, easily, and smoothly in a real-time conversation is precisely the gap we are trying to close together today. And believe me, it's totally achievable. Now, let's talk about a key part of speaking naturally, the way words connect. One of the biggest differences, a truly clear sign between formal, often written English and the wonderfully lively natural spoken English, is what we call connected speech. When native speakers talk, words rarely stay separate. Instead, they beautifully blend and flow into each other. Sounds often change. Sometimes they disappear completely, or they smoothly join with nearby sounds. If you, as a learner, are not used to noticing and understanding these small but common changes, it can be very difficult, even frustrating, to understand fast, natural speech. It's like trying to understand a song when you only hear single notes instead of the whole tune. Imagine trying to understand a pop song where every single word is sung perfectly separate. It would sound strange, right? Natural speech is like a smooth song, where words flow into each other. Let's look at some common examples of this interesting thing. First, think about linking sounds, especially when a word ends with a consonant sound, and the very next word starts with a vowel sound. Take the phrase, pick up. In natural speech, it often sounds like peak up, with the K sound smoothly connecting to the U, or turn off, which changes into turn off, as if the N just slides over to the O. And what about an apple? It's rarely an apple. It's almost always a napple, with that and sound joining. This isn't about being lazy when we speak. It's about making speech flow better, making it easier and quicker to say. Think of not at all, often pronounced as no at all, or stand up, becoming stand up. The end of one word links to the start of the next, creating a seamless connection. It's like a little bridge between words, making the journey from one word to the next effortless. Next, we find elision, which is the interesting process of dropping sounds. Think about the word cupboard. The P sound is very often dropped in natural, quick speech, making it sound more like cupboard. Or February. Sometimes, especially when talking informally, the first R is made softer or even dropped, leading to February. And next door? It often sounds like next door, almost as if the T has gone away. Sounds are gently dropped when they become hard or awkward to say quickly, especially if they are surrounded by similar sounds or if they are in parts of words that are not stressed. It's a natural way to make language simpler. Consider fish and chips, often heard as fish and chips with the and almost disappearing, or I don't know sounding like I don't know. It's almost like our mouths are looking for the easiest path to get the words out, streamlining the effort. Then there's assimilation, where sounds cleverly change to become more like a nearby sound. This is very common with D and T sounds when they are followed by Y. So, don't you often turns into don chu. Did you becomes did you. And would you often sounds like would you. In these cases, a sound gently shifts or changes to be more like the sound next to it, which makes the whole phrase easier and faster to say. It's like the sounds are trying to be better neighbors. Another great example is goodbye, which often sounds like gub-bye in rapid speech, or I have to go, transforming to I have to go. It's all about making the sounds flow more smoothly from one to the next. I remember a student, let's call her Maria, who was so frustrated because she couldn't understand why native speakers seemed to speak so fast. She'd listen to a movie and say, Sophia, they're not saying, did you eat? They're saying, did you eat? What is did you? And that's exactly it. Once she understood connected speech, it was like a light bulb went on. She started hearing these blends everywhere, and suddenly, English conversations made so much more sense. It really is a game changer for listening comprehension. Another student, Ahmed, told me he used to think native speakers were just mumbling. But after practicing linking sounds, he realized they weren't mumbling at all. They were just connecting words naturally. He said it was like learning a secret code that unlocked so much more understanding. This isn't just about speaking faster, it's about speaking smarter, making your words flow together like a natural river of sound. Here's another quick story about connected speech. I was once at a coffee shop and a learner ordered, I would like a cup of coffee. The barista understood, of course, but it took a moment longer. Then a native speaker right after them said, Can I get a cup of coffee? It was so fast, almost one long word. The learner's eyes widened. I explained that cup of often becomes cuppa and getta becomes getta in quick, natural speech. It's not about being lazy, but about efficiency. Once you start listening for these tiny shifts, your ear will tune in and your own speech will naturally follow. Now it's time for some important practice. This is where you really get involved. I want you to listen very carefully to how I say these phrases, paying close attention to how the words mix and flow together. Then, I want you to try repeating them yourself, focusing not on single words, but on copying the whole, smooth flow. Don't worry at all about being perfect right away. The goal here is simply to try and copy the beat and the smooth connection. Let's try these. I need a cup of tea. Listen how cup of becomes cup of. Now you try it. Next, what did you do? Notice, did you transforming into did you? Your turn. Then, he's got to go. Here, got to, often reduced to gotta. Say it aloud. How about, could you help me? Listen for could you as could you. Practice that. And finally, I'm going to eat it. Catch going to as gonna and eat it as eat it. Give it a try. That was fantastic. The more you actively listen for these very common ways of speaking in real native talk, whether it's on podcasts, in movies, or in everyday chats, and the more you actively try to copy them, the more naturally and easily your own speaking will start to flow. It's truly like learning a secret language code, a hidden key that helps you understand and speak faster and more genuinely. And you know what? It makes listening a whole lot easier too. Moving on, let's talk about the words and phrases themselves. Natural conversation is like a rich cloth woven with expressions that often don't make sense if you just look up the individual words in a basic dictionary. These include the wonderfully colorful idioms, the flexible phrasal verbs, and the often missed but very important common collocations. First, let's talk about idioms, which are truly like the bright jewels of the English language. Idioms are phrases where the full meaning is not clear from the single words that make them up. They add a lot of color, life, and real style to your language, and native speakers use them in their conversations all the time, often without even knowing it. Trying to literally translate an idiom word for word will, most of the time, lead to complete confusion or just a very funny mistake. It's like trying to understand a secret handshake. You just have to know what it means, not what each finger is doing. Let me tell you a lovely story about a past colleague of mine who was a brilliant English learner but sometimes tripped up on these language gems. We'll call him Ben. Ben was incredibly good. He could discuss hard topics, write clear reports, and understand most of what he read. One evening, as we were talking about upcoming tests, I casually told him, "I'm going to hit the books tonight. I have so much to cover." Ben, with his usual serious way, looked at me with real worry. His forehead wrinkled a little as he asked, "Will the books break? You must be very strong." I had to hold back a laugh, explaining that to hit the books simply meant to study very hard. It was a truly memorable and funny moment, but it perfectly showed how absolutely crucial it is to grasp the non-literal meanings of these interesting expressions. Without that understanding, talking can feel like walking through a language minefield. Let's look at some common idioms that you can really start to recognize and, maybe, even begin to use in your own English. Break a leg. This doesn't mean to actually hurt yourself. It's a wonderful, encouraging way to say good luck. Imagine someone telling you, "I have a big presentation tomorrow and I'm a bit nervous." Your natural, supportive reply could be, "Oh, break a leg. I'm sure you'll do great." Another one is, "It's raining cats and dogs." This is a wonderfully clear way to describe very, very heavy rain. If you look outside and see huge amounts of water pouring down, you might say, "Wow, don't forget your umbrella. It's raining cats and dogs out there." Then there's bite the bullet. This means to bravely face a hard or unpleasant situation instead of giving up. Perhaps you have a particularly difficult project at work that you dread, like preparing for a very strict audit. You might sigh and say to yourself, "This audit is tough, but we just have to bite the bullet and push through to finish it." You might also hear "under the weather," a gentle way to say you're feeling a little sick or not well. If you wake up with a bit of a sniffle, maybe a sore throat, you might tell a friend, "I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I might have to leave the party early." And finally, hit the nail on the head. This idiom is used when someone explains exactly what is causing a situation or problem, or perfectly finds the truth about something. If someone gives a really smart analysis of a complex issue, like figuring out why a business project failed, you could honestly praise them by saying, "You really hit the nail on the head with that analysis. That's exactly what's going on." I recall another student, Liam, who was visiting London for the first time. He was trying to ask for directions to a famous landmark, and he got completely confused when someone told him, "It's just around the corner." Liam kept looking around the nearest street corner, expecting to see it immediately, when the idiom simply meant it was very close by. He later laughed about it, saying, "I literally thought the building was curved around the corner." This just goes to show how these everyday phrases can really trip you up if you don't understand their true meaning. Another memorable moment involved a student, Chloe, who was trying to tell me she was very busy. She said, "I have my hands full with work." I understood her perfectly, but then she added, "So I cannot hold anything." She was thinking literally about her hands being physically full. I explained that to have your hands full means you are extremely busy, not that you can't carry anything. These little misunderstandings are so common, but they highlight why understanding idioms is so important for natural conversation. They add so much flavor and personality to your speech, making it richer and more authentic. Here's one more example. I was talking to a student, David, about his new job, and he said, "I'm really trying to learn the ropes." I knew exactly what he meant. He was trying to learn how things are done in his new role. But then he paused and looked at me, a little unsure, and asked, "Are there actual ropes? Like for climbing?" We both had a good laugh, and I explained that to learn the ropes is an idiom meaning to learn the basics or how to do something new. It's a fantastic example of how idioms paint a picture, but that picture isn't always literal. Now it's time for some active practice. This is your chance to use what you've learned. I'm going to give you a situation or a sentence, and your job is to find or use the correct idiom we've just talked about. Take a moment to think before you answer. First, imagine your friend is about to take a very important exam. What common idiom would you use to wish them good luck? Say the idiom now. The answer, of course, is break a leg. Next, you look outside and the rain is coming down incredibly heavily, almost like a waterfall. How would you describe this situation using one of our idioms? Say the idiom now. The fitting idiom here is, "It's raining cats and dogs." Now, you're feeling a bit unwell, not seriously sick, but just not quite yourself. How would you express this to a friend using an idiom? Say the idiom now. The natural expression is, "I'm feeling a little under the weather." And finally, your team at work has to deal with a very unpleasant and difficult task that no one wants to do, but it's unavoidable. What idiom describes having to face this challenge courageously? Say the idiom aloud. The vivid idiom is bite the bullet. Excellent work, truly. Don't feel any pressure at all to immediately start using every single idiom you see or learn. The best way is to begin by simply noticing them when you hear or read them. Once you're comfortable with recognizing them, then slowly, one by one, try to use a new idiom or two in your own conversations when you find a truly good moment. It's like adding spices to a dish. A little bit helps make the flavor much better. You'll find yourself saying them without even thinking, which is the goal, right? Next, let's talk about phrasal verbs, those incredibly flexible and common verbs in English. Phrasal verbs are made when a verb is put together with a preposition or an adverb, or sometimes even both, and the combined form often takes on a meaning that is clearly different from the original verb alone. They are very, very common in everyday English, especially in casual spoken language, and learning them is a big step towards sounding more natural. Consider these examples. Look up, meaning to search for information, as in, "I need to look up this unfamiliar word in the dictionary," is very different from simply look, which means to see. Turn down to refuse, as in, "He politely turned down the job offer because it wasn't the right fit," is quite distinct from turn to rotate. Get along with, meaning to have a good relationship with someone, as in, do you get along with your new colleagues at work? Come up with, to think of an idea or solution, as in, can you come up with a creative solution to this problem? And put off, meaning to postpone, as in, don't put off studying for your exams until the very last minute. Let me tell you a short story about a small misunderstanding that perfectly shows how important phrasal verbs are. I was once in a business meeting talking about a busy project schedule, and our team leader suggested, let's put off the discussion about the budget until next week. A new team member, who was not a native speaker and clearly didn't know the phrasal verb put off, looked totally confused. He then seriously asked, "Put it off where? To another room?" He had very literally understood put off as physically moving something to a different place, not delaying it to a later time. It was an innocent misunderstanding, but it strongly highlighted how absolutely essential phrasal verbs are for clear, easy communication in English. This is why just translating words won't always work. You need to understand the new meaning the words create together. It's a bit like a puzzle where the pieces only make sense when they're put together in a specific way. Another time, I was helping a student, Carlos, prepare for a job interview. He was practicing explaining his work experience, and he kept saying, "I finished up my project last month." I gently corrected him, "Carlos, finished up is fine, but finished alone is also perfectly natural and common here." He then asked, "But what about wrap up? Can I use that?" And I said, "Absolutely." Wrap up means to complete something, often a task or a meeting, and it sounds very natural in a business context, like, let's wrap up this meeting in 5 minutes. This conversation showed him that phrasal verbs aren't just single meanings. They offer different shades of meaning and formality, which is key to speaking naturally. I also remember a time when a new colleague, Sarah, who was learning English, was trying to explain that she had to cancel her plans. She kept saying, "I must call off my dinner." While call off is correct, meaning to cancel, she used it in a very formal way. I told her, "Sarah, that's perfectly correct, but in casual conversation, you might just say, 'I have to cancel dinner,' or 'I have to call dinner off with dinner in the middle,' or even, 'I had to back out of dinner.'" She was surprised by the flexibility and how the word order could change. It's these small shifts that make your English sound truly natural. Mastering phrasal verbs is like learning the shortcuts in a city. You can get around without them, but knowing them makes your journey much faster and smoother. Here's a story from my own experience. When I was younger, I once told my grandmother, "I need to get rid of these old clothes." She looked at me, a bit confused, and asked, "Get rid of them where, dear?" "In the bin." I realized she was thinking literally. I explained that get rid of means to throw away or dispose of something. It's a simple phrase, but if you don't know the phrasal verb, it can lead to a funny misunderstanding. This is why practicing them in context is so important. Time for more practice. I'm going to give you a situation. I want you to choose the best phrasal verb we've discussed to describe the action. Take a moment to think before you answer. First, imagine you haven't seen an old friend in years and you want to find them in a directory or online. Which phrasal verb would you use? Is it look at, look up, or look after? Say your choice now. The best fit is look up, to find information or someone. Next, the music on the radio is too loud for a quiet conversation. What would you do to the volume? Would you turn on, turn into, or turn down the music? Say your choice now. Here, turn down is correct, meaning to reduce the volume. Then, you have a list of tasks you need to complete for a project. What phrasal verb describes performing those tasks? Is it carry on, carry out, or carry away? Say your choice now. Carry out means to perform a task. And finally, your team is brainstorming ideas for a new marketing campaign, and you need to generate a new concept. What phrasal verb describes inventing or thinking of that idea? Is it come across, come back, or come up with? Say your choice now. Come up with means to produce an idea or plan. That was great work. Phrasal verbs are known to be difficult because their meanings can be so varied and depend on the situation. The very best way, in my experience, to truly master them is to learn them in context. When you find a new one, try your best to guess its meaning from the words around it and the overall situation, and then make sure to check your understanding. Keep a special notebook just for phrasal verbs. Finally, let's discuss collocations, the natural pairings of words. Collocations are simply words that often and naturally appear together in English. They just sound right to a native speaker, almost without thinking. For instance, we always say, make a decision. We don't say, do a decision. Similarly, it's take a photo, not make a photo. Using correct collocations is a strong way to make your English sound much more natural, smooth, and real. It's often one of the subtle signs that shows an advanced learner from an intermediate one. It's like knowing that peanut butter and jelly just go together, or salt and pepper. You wouldn't usually say peanut butter and sugar, even though both are sweet. Here are some common types of collocations. First, adjective plus, noun. Think about heavy rain, not strong rain or strong tea. You wouldn't say heavy tea. We also say big mistake, though large mistake isn't wrong. Big is more common and natural here. Other examples include deep sleep, fast food, or quick glance. Next, verb plus noun. Examples include make a fuss, not do a fuss, take a break, not have a break, though have a coffee break is fine, do your homework, not make your homework, and pay attention, not give attention. You also catch a cold, lose temper, or break a promise. And then adverb plus adjective. Consider highly recommend, meaning strongly recommend, fully aware, meaning completely aware, or bitterly cold, meaning extremely cold. Other common ones are absolutely furious, badly damaged, or ridiculously expensive. Allow me to share another short, clear story. I once heard a very eager English learner, genuinely trying her best, say, "I did a big mistake in my presentation today." While her meaning was perfectly clear and she got her message across, that phrase, "did a big mistake," immediately, for a native ear, showed that English was not her first language. A native speaker would almost naturally and certainly say, "I made a big mistake." It's these seemingly small, subtle differences in collocation that together greatly help how natural and real your English sounds. Mastering them adds that polished finish. It's like a chef knowing which ingredients pair perfectly to create a gourmet meal, rather than just throwing things together. I remember another time I was at a cafe, and a tourist asked the barista, "Can I do a coffee?" The barista understood, of course, but a native speaker would always say, "Can I get a coffee?" or "Can I have a coffee?" It's a tiny difference, but it's these natural pairings that make your English sound truly effortless. It's not about right or wrong grammar, but about what sounds most natural to a native ear. Another interesting example comes from a conversation I had with a student, Hiroki, about his travel plans. He said, "I want to do a trip to Japan next year." I gently suggested, "Hiroki, that's understandable, but we usually say take a trip or go on a trip. He immediately saw the difference, saying, take a trip sounds much more natural. These little shifts from do a trip to take a trip or make a research to do research are what truly elevate your English from being merely correct to sounding genuinely native. It's like finding the exact right puzzle piece that fits perfectly, making the whole picture complete and smooth. Here's a common one I often hear. A student might say, I want to make a research on this topic. While make is a common verb, for research, the natural collocation is do research. It's a small change, but it instantly sounds more natural to a native speaker. Or saying, I have strong feelings instead of, I have powerful feelings. Both are understandable, but strong feelings just flows better. These are the nuances that make your English sound truly authentic. Now, let's do some practice to make your collocation skills better. I'm going to give you a situation or a context, and I want you to identify the natural verb that goes with the noun I provide. Take a moment to think before you answer. First, when you complete school assignments, do you make homework or do homework? Say the correct verb now. The correct verb is do. Next, if you want to take a short pause from an activity, do you make a break or take a break? Say the correct verb now. You take a break. Then, when you want someone to listen carefully, do you tell them to give attention or pay attention? Say the correct verb now. You pay attention. And finally, if you are in a situation where you need to decide something, do you do a decision or make a decision? Say the correct verb now. You make a decision. Excellent work once again. Learning collocations is a very useful way to grow your vocabulary, as it helps you say what you mean with much greater accuracy and, very importantly, with more natural English. Make it a habit to really notice these natural word pairings whenever you read or listen to English. You'll be surprised how quickly you start to recognize them. Mastering the flow, fluency, confidence, and emotion. We've covered a huge amount of ground today, moving from the basic sounds of English to the smarter ways of advanced conversation. Now, let's pivot our focus to the actual act of speaking itself. The elusive concept of fluency, the vital feeling of confidence, and most importantly, how to effectively overcome those common moments where you might freeze, hesitate, or feel utterly unsure of what to say. One of the most significant, often hidden obstacles to achieving truly natural speech is the deeply ingrained habit of mentally translating everything from your native language into English before you utter it. This constant internal translation acts like a bottleneck, drastically slowing you down, inevitably making your spoken English sound less natural, and frequently leading to awkward or unnatural phrasing. It's like trying to drive with the brakes on. Imagine a busy highway, and every car has to stop at a checkpoint, translate its destination, and then continue. That's what happens in your brain, and it slows down the whole traffic flow of your thoughts. So, how can you genuinely begin the process of thinking directly in English? It's a skill, and like any skill, it requires conscious effort and consistent practice. You can start by labeling everything around you. As you move through your day, whether you're at home, at work, or walking outside, make a conscious effort to mentally name objects, describe actions, and identify feelings, all in English. Silently think, this is a chair. I'm walking to the kitchen. I feel a little hungry right now. Another helpful method is to narrate your day. Imagine you're continuously describing your actions or thoughts to an imaginary English-speaking friend. Internally vocalize, okay, I'm making coffee now. Then I'll check my emails before my first meeting. It's important to start with simple sentences first. Don't try to make highly complex philosophical thoughts in English right away. Begin with basic subject-verb-object structures. Build up from there. Also, try to use an English-English dictionary. When you find a new word, try your best to understand its meaning from an English definition and explanation, rather than immediately looking for a direct translation into your native language. This helps train your brain to process ideas directly in English. And most importantly, don't panic about perfection. It is absolutely, completely okay if your internal monologue isn't perfectly grammatically correct or eloquently phrased. The main goal here is simply to get your brain used to and comfortable with the process of directly thinking about ideas in English without the extra step of translation. Let me share a very real, very vivid story from a student who truly understood the burden of constant translation. She once told me, quite dramatically, that she literally felt a headache developing after speaking English for an extended period. When I asked her why, her eyes widened as she explained, "Because my brain is doing double work. It translates from my language to English, then English back to my language to check if it's correct, and then I speak." This incredibly honest and precise description perfectly shows the huge mental load, the energy drain, that constant translation can create. By consistently training your brain to think directly in English, even in small bursts, you greatly reduce this heavy mental pressure, freeing up brain power for more natural expression. Your brain, my dear listeners, is an astonishingly adaptable organ. Just as it wonderfully learned to process your native language directly, it has the amazing ability to learn to do the very same with English. It needs regular exposure, active practice, and a little bit of patience. Think of your brain as a muscle. The more you exercise it by directly processing English, the stronger and more efficient that pathway in your brain becomes. And here's a personal story about thinking in English. When I was learning Spanish, I found myself constantly translating. It was exhausting. One day, I decided to try something different. I started labeling everything in my kitchen in Spanish. This is la taza. This is el plato. Then I started thinking about my grocery list in Spanish. It felt silly at first, but after a few weeks, I noticed I wasn't translating as much. When I wanted to say, "I need milk," the Spanish words just came to me, without going through English first. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. That's the power of training your brain to think directly in the language. Now for a practical exercise, a moment of silent narration. For the next minute, as you attentively listen to my voice, I want you to try to mentally describe your immediate surroundings, or perhaps what you plan to do next, or even just what you're seeing around you, using only English in your thoughts. No translation, just simple, direct observations. Take a moment and try that now. How did that feel? Perhaps a little strange, a bit challenging at first, right? That's perfectly normal. But with consistent and dedicated effort, this practice of thinking in English will gradually, almost without you noticing, become a natural, ingrained part of your thinking process. It's a truly freeing step. Next, let's explore intonation and emotion, speaking with genuine feeling. Intonation refers to the captivating rise and fall of your voice as you speak. It's the melody of your language, and it plays an absolutely crucial role in conveying emotion, emphasizing specific meaning, and signaling whether you're asking a question, making a definitive statement, or expressing sheer surprise. Monotone speech, as we touched upon earlier, sadly lacks this vital expressive element. Imagine someone telling a joke with a completely flat voice. It wouldn't be funny, would it? The voice tells us how to feel. Consider these common intonation patterns. First, rising intonation. This is often used for simple yes-no questions. For example, are you ready? The pitch of your voice rises at the end. It's also frequently used to express surprise, really? Or when listing items, I bought apples, oranges, and bananas. Then, falling intonation. This is the most common pattern for definitive statements, I'm tired. For white-arch questions, questions beginning with words like who, what, where, when, why, and how, such as where are you going? Or for direct commands, sit down. And finally, rising falling intonation. This more complex pattern is often used when presenting choices, do you want tea or coffee? Or when expressing a particularly strong emotion, such as excitement or sarcasm, which can sometimes be tricky. Let me share a quick story about the power and potential problems of intonation. I distinctly remember a time when a friend, trying to be sarcastic and witty, said, "Oh, that was a great idea." However, because his intonation was almost completely flat, without any clear rise or fall, it genuinely sounded like he meant it was an actual good idea. This led to a brief moment of confusion and an awkward clarification. My other friend, who didn't know the first friend well, thought he was serious and said, "Yes, I agree. It was a great idea." This simple incident perfectly shows how absolutely critical intonation is for conveying subtle nuances like sarcasm, excitement, boredom, or even genuine doubt. In English, our tone of voice adds rich, complex layers of meaning. It has the power to change a polite request into a firm demand, or a sincere compliment into an ironic jab. Learning to keenly hear and then reproduce these varied patterns is absolutely crucial for natural, effective interaction. Another story about intonation. I once had a student, Javier, who was very good with grammar, but his English always sounded a bit flat. He was telling me about a surprise party he had planned for his friend, and he said, "I am very excited for the party." Each word was clear, but there was no real excitement in his voice. I asked him to try again, but this time to imagine how he would say it in his native language, with all the joy and anticipation. When he repeated, "I'm so excited for the party," with a rising and falling tone on so and excited, his face lit up and his English sounded completely different. It was like magic. That's the power of letting your emotions guide your voice. Now, for some practice, I'm going to say a simple phrase, and I want you to try to repeat it immediately after me. But this time, your crucial task is to try and capture and convey the specific emotion that I express through my intonation. Mimic not just the words, but the feeling. First, say, "Oh, really?" Try to convey genuine surprise with a clear rising intonation at the end. Your turn. Next, "That's fantastic." Now, try to express excitement with a strong rising falling intonation. And go ahead. Then, "I'm so tired." Here, convey exhaustion with a noticeable falling intonation. Say it now. And finally, "What are you doing?" Express curiosity with a falling intonation on doing. Try that. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You're no longer just speaking individual words. You are speaking with genuine feeling, with emotion, and that, my friends, is an enormous, incredibly significant step towards sounding truly natural in English. The art of pausing, breath and thought in conversation. Next, let's address something that often makes learners feel self-conscious, but is in fact an entirely natural part of communication: pauses and filler words, the very breath of conversation. No one, not even the most eloquent native speaker, articulates perfectly without any pauses. In natural conversation, we instinctively use pauses to take a breath, to gather our thoughts, to emphasize a particular point, or simply to allow the listener time to process what we've said. We also employ filler words, those little sounds or words like like, or so, not to replace meaningful content, but to buy ourselves a precious moment while we organize our thoughts, search for the right word, or plan our next utterance. It's helpful to learn about strategic pauses. Learn to use pauses where they naturally happen in spoken language. Perhaps before introducing a new idea, after a comma in a complex sentence, or when you want to highlight a particular word or phrase. Importantly, do not be afraid of a brief moment of silence. It is an entirely natural, often very effective, part of conversation. It shows you are thoughtful, not unsure. For example, I went to the store today to buy some fresh groceries for dinner. This sounds far more natural than rushing through it. As for filler words, while it's good to recognize and understand these, try to avoid using them too much. A few naturally placed filler words are perfectly fine and even help you sound real, but too many can unfortunately make you sound unsure or less confident. The main goal is to sound natural, not to fill every silence with an or an Let me share a vivid story about a particular learner I taught, who believed that to sound truly fluent, he had to speak as fast as humanly possible, without any breaks whatsoever. He would rush through sentences, often stumbling over his words, making frequent errors, and becoming quite breathless. He genuinely thought that any pause, any moment of silence, showed a basic lack of English ability. For instance, he'd say, "You went to the park and then went to the shoppa and then bought some food," all in one breath. But the truth, I assured him, is quite the opposite. Well-placed, thoughtful pauses are actually a sign of controlled, confident, and clear communication. They give you, the speaker, crucial time to think and form your thoughts, and they equally give your listener time to understand and fully take in what you're saying. Think of pauses as the punctuation marks of spoken language. They clearly separate different thoughts and provide important moments for understanding information. Filler words, when used naturally and sparingly, are like conversational breathing room. They are a natural rhythmic part of real-time spontaneous speech. Here's another story about pauses. I had a student named Ling who was incredibly articulate in her native language. When she spoke English, she was very careful, but sometimes her sentences felt a bit rushed, like she was afraid to stop. I encouraged her to embrace pauses, to use them to breathe and to think, just like she would in her own language. The first time she intentionally paused before a key idea, she looked at me, surprised, and said, "It felt powerful, like I was really in control." And she was right. Her speech immediately became clearer, more confident, and much more natural. It's about owning your space in the conversation. Now, for a practical exercise, speaking with pauses. I'm going to read a sentence, and I want you to repeat it immediately after I say it, paying very close attention to where I naturally insert my pauses. Then, I want you to try constructing a simple sentence of your very own, and consciously add a natural, meaningful pause where it feels most appropriate. First, repeat after me. I'm going to the store today to buy some fresh groceries for dinner. Now, try this one. What I truly want to say is, It's a genuinely difficult situation for everyone involved. Now, try one completely on your own. Describe your favorite hobby or a simple activity you enjoy, allowing for a natural pause if you need to think. Take a moment and say your sentence now. That's it. Embracing and utilizing pauses effectively can, somewhat counterintuitively, actually make you sound more confident, more thoughtful, and more in control of your spoken English. It's a skill worth cultivating. Your 7-day challenge to natural English. We've covered a huge amount of ground today, moving from the basic sounds of English to the smarter ways of advanced conversation. Now, let's bring all these vital elements together into a personalized, actionable plan that you can genuinely begin to implement in your daily life, starting right now to truly speak English naturally. A quick review of our main areas we've looked at. We talked about pronunciation and rhythm, which includes getting good at connected speech, understanding where to stress words in sentences, and developing natural up and down patterns in your voice. We also covered vocabulary expansion, explaining that beyond single words, this means learning idioms, understanding how flexible phrasal verbs are, and recognizing common word partnerships. Then there was fluency and confidence building, which involves actively practicing thinking directly in English, wisely managing your use of pauses and small filler words, and, very importantly, seeing mistakes as valuable chances to learn. And for those of you looking to really polish your English, we touched on advanced nuances, which involves purposely changing your sentence structure for more complex ways of speaking, getting good at politely agreeing and disagreeing, and effectively using linking words and phrases to make your talk flow better. Here's your very own 7-day challenge for natural English. I genuinely challenge you to spend at least 15 to 20 focused minutes each day this week on one of these specific activities. Choose the one that feels most challenging to you right now, or perhaps the one that just makes you most interested. Day 1. Active listening and shadowing. On this day, choose a short part from an English podcast, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, or a short scene from a movie or TV show. Listen closely to it, not just to understand the meaning, but to hear how the words are said, how they blend together. Then try to copy the speaker, mimicking their pronunciation, their rhythm, and their voice patterns as closely as you possibly can. This trains your mouth muscles and helps you get a feel for the natural pace. Day 2. Idiom char phrasal verb focus. For day 2, pick just 2 or 3 new idioms or phrasal verbs that you've come across recently. For example, if you heard get cold feet, meaning to suddenly become too scared to do something, write it down. Then, make a couple of example sentences showing how they're used in a real situation, like, I was going to try bungee jumping, but I got cold feet at the last minute. Make a conscious effort to use each one in 1 or 2 sentences that you say aloud to yourself or to a friend. This helps to internalize their meaning and usage. Day 3. Thinking in English. On day 3, for 10 to 15 dedicated minutes today, try your best to tell yourself about your actions, your observations, or your thoughts silently, only in English. For instance, right now you might think, I am sitting comfortably. The weather outside looks nice today. I should make a note of this podcast point. Describe what you see around you, what you're currently doing, or how you're feeling right at this moment. This builds your mental fluency by bypassing translation. Day 4. Intonation practice. For this day, record yourself saying a few simple sentences, but purposely try to show different emotions with each one. For example, say, I can't believe it. First with surprise, then with disappointment, then with anger. Then, listen back to your recording and compare it with how a native speaker might express those same emotions. You can find examples of these emotions in movies or TV shows. Find areas where you can get better. Day 5, Collocation Awareness. As you read any English text today, a news article, a blog post, a short story, or as you listen to any English audio, actively write down any interesting or new word partnerships you find. For instance, if you read strong coffee, note it down. Or if you hear take a chance, add that to your list. Keep a list. This will expand your natural vocabulary in a highly practical way. Day 6, Polite Expressions. On day 6, do a quick mental role play. Imagine you are in a discussion and practice replying to made-up statements using the polite agreement or polite disagreement phrases we discussed. For example, if someone says, "I think we should cancel the meeting," practice responding with, "I see your point, but perhaps we could just reschedule." Focus on the gentle language and softening phrases. Day 7, Conversation Practice. Finally, for day 7, find a chance, even a short one, to speak English, whether it's with an English-speaking friend, someone you exchange languages with, a teacher, or even just talking aloud to yourself in front of a mirror. Your goal for today is to consciously focus on using just 1 or 2 of the specific things you've learned and practiced this week. Maybe you'll focus on making sure your connected speech is smooth or trying out a new idiom. Remember, dear listeners, consistency in your practice is far, far more important and effective than trying to study a lot only sometimes. Even spending just a few minutes every single day will always give better and longer-lasting results than trying to fit in many hours once a week. It's the total effect of small, regular efforts. Imagine watering a plant a little bit every day versus drenching it once a month. The consistent effort brings sustained growth. Learning to speak English naturally is absolutely a journey. It is not a final stop. It's a wonderfully continuous process of actively listening, carefully watching, diligently practicing, and gracefully adjusting. You have already come so incredibly far, building a remarkably strong and admirable base. Now, it's truly time to begin adding those small but very powerful layers of naturalness that will make your English not just correct, but truly shine. Please, I truly ask you, do not let yourself get discouraged by problems or moments of frustration. Every single time you try, every single time you bravely say a sentence, and yes, every single time you make a mistake, you are actively learning and growing. Each of those moments is a priceless step on your path. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small or unimportant it may seem at the moment. The very fact that you are listening to this podcast right now, engaging with this material, shows an incredible level of dedication, and that strong dedication will, without a doubt, lead you to speaking English with much greater naturalness, confidence, and real expression. I truly encourage you to revisit parts of this episode, to pause the recording, go back, and practice as many times as you need to. The more you actively work with this material, the more deeply it will stick in your mind and become a natural part of how you use language. Thank you very much for joining me on the Best English Podcast today. I truly hope this full and detailed episode has given you valuable ideas and, more importantly, truly useful tools to help you speak English more naturally and confidently. Keep practicing, keep listening, and most importantly, keep believing in your amazing ability to reach your English language goals. Until our next episode, happy and confident learning.